Hi guys, this is Chris from AndroidPIT.com, and today we are here to talk about the Nexus 6. Now, if you don't know what a Nexus is, it's basically the Google reference device for Android. So what does that mean? That means stock Android, low cost, high performance hardware, and no bells and whistles. So the first question is, who do you think is going to be making it this year? At this point, it looks pretty obvious it's going to be Motorola. As you know, Motorola was recently owned by Google and then sold to Lenovo. So if you think about it, it actually makes quite a lot of sense for Google to work with Motorola on the Nexus 6. Obviously, Google has retained quite a lot of Motorola's patents. That means things like touchless control, think Google Now, and active display, and all sorts of other cool things like the language listening core in the Moto X that obviously would work fantastically with Google's voice activation and Google Now. So we can obviously see a lot of that making a lot of sense in the next Nexus. So what will the device be based on? Originally we thought maybe the HTC M8. That went nowhere. Then there was the LG G3. Then LG said they had nothing to do with it. But then this mysterious device called the Shamu came up under Motorola. Shamu is actually the name of a killer whale at SeaWorld. As a whale, it's pretty big, and so was the device under that name. 5.9 inches, that's right up there in the phablet space. Potentially too big for a smartphone, depending on who you talk to. Those rumors were independently confirmed. The Shamu was looking to be 5.9 inches, and everyone was pretty happy with that, until recent benchmarks came out pretty much simultaneously showing a 5.2-inch device. All of a sudden, everyone's much happier because nobody really wants a 5.9-inch Nexus in their back pocket. At the moment, we can't exactly pull apart the 5.9-inch Shamu, which could actually be an Android Silver device destined for Verizon next year, and the 5.2-inch, which is also kind of tied up with the Moto X Plus 1, which will be announced very soon on September 4th. We're thinking the 5.2-inch is more likely as a candidate for the Nexus 6 basis. So when can we expect to see it? Well, last year the Nexus 5 appeared on October 31st, was Halloween. We're thinking this year around the same time frame, probably early November we'll see it announced and released along with Android 5.0. So the Nexus 5 came out at $349 US and $399 US for a 16 and 32 gig version. We're assuming the Nexus 6 will bump up to a 32 and a 64, so it'll probably come in at $399 US and $449 US, depending which version you go for. Okay, so what's going to be in the Nexus 6? Well, this is where things get kind of interesting. Obviously, we know that it's going to coincide with the launch of Android 5.0. Now, at the moment, the benchmarks are all pointing to a Snapdragon 805 with a 2.65 gigahertz processor. So that's all fine and good. 3 gig of RAM, Adreno 420 GPU, that sounds great for the 60 frames per second animations and material design, all these other things. It all sounds great. However, Android 5.0 is all about 64-bit, and the Snapdragon 805 is a 32-bit CPU. So could it mean that Google will release a reference device that can't actually showcase Android at 64-bit? Interesting. The other thing that we can look at is the HTC Volantis, which is what we're all expecting to be the Nexus 9. So that will actually be a 64-bit chip, a Tegra K1 Denver, more than likely. So it could be that we have a reference device in a tablet, and yet we have a smartphone that's not really able to present the very best that Android has to offer. This seems kind of weird, so we wouldn't be surprised if somehow Google managed to squeeze an 808 Snapdragon in there early next year when they're ready for mass production. And the other things that we're expecting from the Nexus 6, of course, is, according to the benchmarks, a 13 megapixel camera with the new Android camera API, so that should be pretty fantastic. 2.1 megapixel camera up front. We're not quite sure about the battery size yet, but we do know that Project Volta in the Android L developer preview has already been doing pretty fantastic things for the Nexus 5, so we can only assume that battery life will be pretty exceptional on all devices running Android 5.0. We're also kind of crossing our fingers for Cat 6 LTE. It's not exactly useful everywhere, but hey, why not? It's a next-gen device, so why not have it? And last but not least, it looks like the Nexus 6 will indeed have a QHD display. That's a 2K display that we've seen on the Oppo Find 7 and the LG G3 this year. We kind of didn't think it would go that way, seeing that it potentially chews battery and it's pretty expensive to throw on top of a sort of a budget cut corners kind of device like a Nexus. However, all the benchmarks are pointing to a 2K display, so we may very well see next-gen graphics and display technology in the Nexus 6. We don't have long to wait, possibly early November or even the end of October, so stay tuned to AndroidPIT, guys. Click subscribe to the channel, make sure you like the video, check out all of our social channels, the website, and of course download the app. I'm Chris, till next time, see you later.